Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. This is Raging Verbalist number 85. And this is one of those topics that is a little touchy for me. Not for Sandra, though, but for me, it's a little touchy. So for those of you who have not been on Raging Verbalist before, you've been missing out. There's 84 earlier ones that you might want to go grab. But this is number 85. And as always, we have the lovely Sandra. And Sandra is actually sitting there in your place, asking the questions that if you had that pre-knowledge, that precognition, you would be asking these questions. So without any more delay, we welcome the lovely Sandra. Sandra, how you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I am pumped up about this topic. And when I saw this is going to be great. So, all right. So lay it on me. I'm sitting down.
Okay. So first question out the gate. What is the study that talks about how we might be getting too fat to fly?
Now, you know what, this one, strikes home for me. But if you are in COVID land, if you've been sitting around, if you've been thinking about, well, how big do they make stretch pants? I have to tell you, I was at a Ross Dress for Less. And I know, yeah, that's a high end place. And I was looking at the big boy stuff because I'm a big guy. And I found this and it had the right size for me. And no, I will not tell you what that is. Just like you never like walk up to somebody and go, what do you weigh? But anyway, and I saw this and I thought, wow, those look like really cool shorts. I'm going to buy these shorts. And I got all the way to the front and the woman said to me, do you know what size it is? I said, it's on the hanger. She goes, not quite. And she pulled it out and they were 6X. I mean, I don't know how big you got to be for 6X, but let's just put it this way. If you're 6X and you walk into a buffet, the owner starts just feeling like they're going to lose money. I mean, they just know that. All right. But back to your question, are we too fat to fly? And yes, the FAA has come out and they've demanded, damn it, that the airlines tell them about how they're going to handle that people are getting fatter and what are they going to do about it? Because you know what, planes are going to be, can't get tubby off the runway kind of deal is going on. So yes, Sandra, sadly, it's true that people are getting just a bit too big to fly. And, but the FAA is cracking down. Bureaucrats have finally realized. And by the way, have you ever seen some of these bureaucrats? I mean, I've seen those stretch pants. I mean, I've seen, whoa, look out, But that's, not say all bureaucrats, so don't go saying, oh, I'm a thin bureaucrat. Yeah. But I'm talking about you, and you know who you are out there. So yes, they're saying that we might be getting too fat to fly. So that's our kickoff right there. So.
Sorry, I'm just thinking or take off, but you can't because you're too big.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you can't get enough lift to get tubby off the runway, I mean, time to get on the bus,
Oh gosh. All right. So is this new, trying to figure out how much is too much to fly?
Well, I think it's somewhat new, but not really, because just look at Orville and Wilbur Wright. I mean, if you ever see photos of these guys were thin guys. I mean, these guys didn't stop off at off at the dessert tray more than a couple of times here or there. So my guess is that everybody's always been worried about this, but people were smaller at one point in time. And I can tell you from having flown on propeller planes, and I know some of you out there may not know what that looks like, but it's got this thing that spins around like that. And anyway, I have been on those kind of flights because I've flown some pretty weird places in which they would come on, and it was always, now the flight, again, this flight attendant looked like she could just kick my ass, but she couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall. And she walked in and she said, okay, you and you get over on this side, because she had to balance the weight of the plane, because prop plane, that makes a difference. Jets, we used to think it didn't. But apparently now the FAA is saying, nope, we got too much girth and not enough lift. So it looks like they're updating it now and pushing it forward. So if you're out there and you know who you are, this episode is for you, because we're going to be talking about this. So yeah, I think it's not new, but it's getting more serious. And, especially after COVID, people have been packing it in, they've been hibernating. And usually hibernation is a reduction. Bears start out fat and then they get slimmer. But this is like the opposite for humans. After you get the big giant Cheeto bag or something, you're getting bigger. So that's my take of it. Orville and Wilbur were thin, but we're not anymore.
All right. So where does this lead us to in a post-COVID world of flying?
Well, you think that things are going to open up and get better. And a friend of mine, actually a business partner of mine, his wife actually lives in Vancouver. And let me tell you the kind of trip that she had to take to get from Vancouver to Buffalo, New York. Now, in normal circumstances, without this whole COVID thing, it would have been pretty simple. You get on a plane in Vancouver, and you fly to Toronto, and then you basically, walk across the border and you're in Buffalo. Not quite that, but essentially that's what it is. But not today, because now, even though we're supposedly getting back to normal, getting back to where we want to go, is that here's what she had to do. First off, she had to go get a test to prove that she is negative, COVID negative, even though she has a card that says she has been vaccinated and she has waited the appropriate amount of time. But here's the key. You have to get it, and you only have so many hours before you can get on the plane. Now, they did not realize this before they booked an 8 a.m. Monday flight. Guess what? That means that she had to get it like Friday and had to get the fast test, and you get the fast test, and then the clock starts ticking. Now, if the flight's delayed or something else, they're very strict about this. So she gets her test. She finds out that she is COVID negative. No surprises. And check out this routing. I know that, Sandra, you've flown a lot, but this is going to be one of those kind of flights. And she had to get down there. She gets on the flight. She flies from Vancouver to Montreal. No surprise there, right? But still in Canada, but she flies to Montreal. Then from Montreal, she changes planes. She clears customs, and she has to fly to Dulles, Washington, D.C. If you have a map, you notice that you're going the wrong direction at this point in time because you're way over on the East Coast. And then she had to change terminals, change planes, do all that. And then she had to catch a flight to Buffalo and get to Buffalo. So that's kind of like what it's like flying in a post-COVID world, because flying has become more difficult than it was before by a long shot. And I've experienced that myself just because of some of the delays and some of the issues. But there's an example of what it's going to be like to fly in this post-COVID world. Longer lines, more hassle, crazier stuff. And all I can say is being too fat to fly is one of the problems, but having to deal with all this other bureaucracy and nonsense, now that takes the cake. Amazingly, she made it. Now, you'll have to wait because she hasn't flown back yet, because this is contemporaneous. So when she flies back, maybe I will give a special bonus to say what that journey was like to get back home from Buffalo. So that's what we have. Now, for those of you who are wondering about what to do with the unexpected or have extra time because you're traveling and you don't quite know how to fill that time, and you're sitting there saying, boy, if I just had a good book, a couple of good books, well, that's just fine. You've come to the right place. And as soon as I find the right thing, where is it? Is that you can go check this out. And what you can do is you can now go and get 2 books. Well, and it's most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes you 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to Win. That's available in soft copy. It's available in digital, all formats, and away you go. The other one is Remote Work for a Better World. You're not being remote if you're flying somewhere, but if you want to read Remote Work for a Better World, available exclusively on Kindle, and go check it out. And it's still 99 cents. You can also go to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. You can go get an autographed copy. We've got more coming in. So we ran out. So don't worry, never fear. You're going to get it, and go check it out, and away you go. All right. So we have now covered that. Sandra, what do we have next on the Are You Too Fat to Fly marathon here? What do we have?
All right. So I recall one time you had told me that you were on a flight where they were thinking about weighing everyone. So can you tell me a little more about that experience?
So years ago, I was in Denver. I grew up in Denver. I was born in Denver, but I was in Denver, and I needed to go to Boston, which is the company I work for was in the Boston area. And it was a hot summer day, hot day. And if you've ever been in Denver on a hot day, and again, I know I've been to Phoenix, I've been to Vegas, I've lived in both places, I understand. But if you're in Denver, you're at altitude in hot weather. So I was flying a semi-professional airline at the time, which was Continental Airlines. They've now been subsumed and absorbed in by, I think, United. And anyway, we're sitting there and we're getting delays because it is too hot to take off. They literally could not take off because if they took off, it would be hard because you wouldn't get enough lift. So they're sitting there and it is a 100%, this is obviously summertime, 100% full flight. That means all of us who are tried and true business travelers are stuck there with all of mom, dad, and the kiddies, who of course are all whining, bitching, and moaning. I mean, it's tough enough when you go with adults that are doing that, but then you got the kids. How come this is going there? If we knew the answer to that kid, we wouldn't be at an airport. I would be, flying, or we wouldn't be flying commercial, we'd be flying private. And they come up with this great, brilliant idea. And they said, well, we know how much the plane can weigh for us to take off. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring a scale and we're going to weigh all the passengers so we have an exact number, because it turns out that if you ask somebody, what do you weigh? They have a tendency not to tell you the truth. And, if it's like the plane's going to crash, that becomes an important thing. And I'm all for finding out how much you weigh. So they start doing that. Now, there is a moan and a groan from the entire gate area because, of course, everybody has gone, wait a second. Now, I could just imagine that they're sitting there and Sally Smith walks up and they say, well, Sally, how much do you weigh? And she goes, 112 pounds. And she gets on the scale and the guy goes, Sally Smith, 135. And I'm sure that she would have been very happy about that. So there was a certain amount of, and it's not like today, because today, you'd have people getting crazy and they'd be doing, feeds on the internet, but there's, people are getting upset. So we're sitting there for a while. And what they did was they had to take some of the delivery stuff, because, by the way, airmail really flies in commercial planes a lot. And they took it off so we could get the weight down. And the pilot is standing out at the gate. Now, you don't see this often. And the pilot says, listen, we're really heavy, even with taking off the weight. So when we get on that runway and we go down that long runway, because we're on the longest runway, the plane is going to get up there. It's going to be slow to get up there. I don't want anybody to get nervous. Now, I have flown at that point in time, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands, maybe over 1 million miles in my life, probably well over 1 million. And I go, okay, now, nobody wants to know how much Sally Smith weighs, or actually, she doesn't want anybody to know how much she weighs, or, the other people. I mean, I shouldn't just pick on one gender. I mean, let's face it, guys are lying about their weight too. Who hasn't been there? Oh, yeah, I weigh 195. Yeah. Which shoe are we measuring on that one, pal? Anyway, so they roll us on the plane. We're all sitting there, and I mean, it is 100% packed. And of course, it has cooled just a bit. And as we're rolling down the long runway, and I mean, we're rolling down this runway, you can feel the plane, and this was an Airbus, you could feel the plane groaning and groaning and groaning, and we're all kind of using that, helpful thing, we didn't quite break into a chant of, I think I can, or something like that. And the plane finally takes off and we're climbing and he stops climbing, and he turns it to the east, and we're now flying east. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Colorado or Denver is on a high plateau. It's a mile high. But as you fly east, the plateau goes away. So he comes on, and here are the words. I wrote them down. He goes, as we fly east and the planet drops away, the air will cool and we will gain further lift, and we'll be able to then get up to our cruising altitude. Now, if you've never seen white knuckler flyers who were scared, hearing the term as the planet drops away. Now, I don't know where the guy came up with it. I wish I would have written it. It's a funnier than funny line. As the planet drops away, we're going to get some lift. So hang in there, folks. I don't think there was an atheist on the flight after that one. I mean, it was like, you start believing in a deity at that point in time. And yes, we finally, we got up to altitude and everything was fine. We landed in Boston. But of course, the best part about it is that when you're flying into Boston, there's always a percentage of those people who are Bostonians and got friends who are Bostonians, usually not the mellowest people. This isn't like flying to Malibu or flying into Hawaii, because once we get up there, these people start whining and moaning, we should get free drinks. We should get this. Yeah, well, you're just lucky you're on the plane and the planet dropped away and we made it. So that was my almost being weighed for a flight. And interesting, they didn't actually go through it. But it was a very tense takeoff, to say the least. All right, what's the next one? Lay it on me.
All right. So why do you think it took the airline industry this long to realize people are getting larger? And haven't any of them gone into a Walmart recently?
I like that question. Yeah. I think that it's amazing that in 2021, somebody finally realized that people are getting larger and heavier and all of that. And all I can tell you is that it is just astonishing that nobody is thinking that way, because, I've watched people, and as they girth out more and more and more, and I can tell you that that especially on some Southwest flights, because as everybody gets to sit where they want to sit as long as there's nobody sitting there, is that nothing is better, especially like if I had to change tickets and I could get onto an earlier flight or something, to being stuck between a sumo wrestler and Jabba the Hutt and getting squeezed into that middle seat. Now, I'm not a thin guy. I'm a tall guy. I'm a big enough guy. I'm not like huge, but I have been jammed in there. And I think that it has finally figured out that the airline industry is saying, you know what, because by the way, they've been shrinking the size of seats and the space available in some of these airlines, and because they're trying to get more seats in it. Now, all I can tell you is that is like crazy, because I think that's where now the FAA is finally stepping in. Here's a special bonus for all of you, which is they have now started the idea of testing where they have no seats at all. And what they have is like you step up onto this little bar, and then you kind of lean back into this like little hammock thing, and they buckle you in, and then they tilt you back so you don't have that strain and relief. And there are no seats because they can get more people on the plane. Can't wait for that one. Yeah. Yeah. Who wants to sign up for that? Yeah. How was your trip to Paris? Oh, I stood for 14 hours. Now I know why people in France are so pissy. By the way, if you're from France, I'm just saying, you got a little bit of a reputation. So, yeah. So that I think it just took a long time. And yeah, nobody has ever been to a Walmart to figure out this is the size of the people we're creating. And you know what? You're going to need bigger, more room for these people to sit and fit, because there's just some big ones out there. What's up next?
All right. So is this really going to change things?
When the FAA puts these things out, I just wonder if they do it just to kind of get people kind of riled up a little bit, especially travelers like myself who live on airplanes. I don't know if it's going to change some things. I mean, the FAA airline industry is deregulated, and they're trying to figure out how to make some of the skinniest seats possible. I took a flight from Dulles to Denver, and it was on a United flight, and they had special Recaro seats. Now, Recaro is a famous German seat maker, and they put them in Porsches, Recaro seats. And what they were is they got rid of the cushions, and they basically had nylon mesh. Now, nylon mesh is okay if you're sitting out there and they're grilling some dogs and burgers, and there's a cooler that has some cold drinks in it, and the kids are running around and you're sitting there. But from Dulles to Denver, all I can say is, I probably still have indentations on my rear end from that thing. I mean, it was ridiculous. And they gave me a little card and they said, please provide our feedback. And we had filled it out. And I asked the guy, how many positive responses do you get? And the guy said, well, from really thin, skinny people, we get pretty good things. But and then he didn't say anything. I said, you mean a guy like me? And he goes, yeah. Because nobody likes these funny little seats. So we'll see if it's going to really change anything. They are going to try to figure out how to squeeze more of us in. And I guess can't wait for the standing flights. That'll be a lot of fun. So, all right. What's our next? Because we're about running out of time. So I think we have time for one more question.
All right. What can you do to make flying work for you today?
Well, the first thing is that you got to know that lines are crazy. I was at last time that I did my little whirlwind trip, which is like my kind of trip. Flew from California to Denver, Denver to New York, New York to Dallas, and Dallas home. By the way, that's that used to be like I would do that in like 3 days. Today you can't do it in 3 days. But Denver, the line was so long. And it's almost like, like how long was it? So and of course I get all I have every little service I can pay for to get through the lines faster. So if you're going to fly often, you want to do like the frequent travel thing with TSA, definitely you want to do that because you want to be in that shorter line. And then if you have the service Clear available, I am a poster guy for Clear. It is a great service, but there was a 2.5 hour wait through security. That's by the way, why I went to those services is that I started missing flights in airports like Denver. And right now with COVID, it is even significantly worse. So how to make it work for you? Number one, you got to give yourself more time. Number two, lots of deep breaths. Number three, just write this on a 3x5 card, take it out whenever something disappoints you. On one side, it says shit happens. And the other side, it says, oh, well, fuck it. And then you just flip the card over back and forth and back and forth, and that'll probably get you through. And then the final thing is that they don't serve anything on the planes anymore, really. So whatever you need to have provision wise, think of it as just like when the settlers went out across the Great Plains into the deserts and the mountains. You got to take the stuff with you because if you don't, it's not going to happen. And number 5, just understand it is the shortest way to get across the country. So with that, I'm going to tell you right now that if you're going to fly, take some of those things. And when you look in the mirror, maybe you're too fat to fly or you're not going to be convenient about it. So just keep that in mind. And we'll see if the FAA really clamps down on this. Who knows? Maybe they're going to be weighing us and seeing what our BMI is. Maybe they'll charge us by the pound to fly, and maybe that'll incentivize us to lose some weight. But whatever it is, all I can say to you is that this has been the Raging Verbalist number 85. And are you too fucking fat to fly? Only you and the FAA will know. So with that, I want to thank Sandra, who comes on every weekend, puts up with all of this fun and frivolity, and for you. And if you have not subscribed, if you've not hit the like button, and there should be no other button than the like button for this, and you want to hit the notification thing, do that. Also, remember, you can go to our Facebook group, Position to Win Book, and you can go to the website, positiontowinbook.com. Go check it out. There's a bunch of free stuff for you guys out there. And all I can say is maybe you should put that chip down so you can make that flight.